Imagine a deal so powerful, so carefully engineered, that it didn't just reshape an economy. It rewired the destiny of an entire nation. Picture a dimly lit council chamber in the heart of a fading empire. Polished mahogany tables, gold-trimmed documents, and officials with sleepless eyes. Outside, citizens line the streets demanding answers. Inside, rulers whisper about insolvency and collapse. The treasury is empty. War debts stack higher than monuments. The currency is losing value faster than ministers can draft speeches. Every solution presented is either too slow, too political, or too dangerous to attempt. And so, in quiet desperation, the government makes a choice it hopes the world will never discover. They invite powerful financiers, an elite banking syndicate, into the room. These men are not elected, not accountable, and not sentimental. They are sharks who smell blood in the water. When they arrive, they do not come offering generosity. They come offering a lifeline made of gold that coils like a snake. The officials, with trembling hands, sign documents they barely read. In that moment, a nation mortgages its future. The room is silent as pen meets paper, but outside, an empire shifts. And the question that haunts history is simple. Was this a rescue or the beginning of an economic conquest? To understand how such a contract could even exist, we must step back into the context. This was a time when public faith in institutions was brittle. The nation had just endured a brutal period. Wars that drained the treasury, political corruption that eroded trust, rising inequality, and grain shortages that pushed ordinary citizens to desperation. Inflation crept into markets like a silent disease. Wages stagnated while prices climbed, and merchants feared the next sunrise. It was an era when rumors traveled faster than truth. Newspapers printed alarming headlines about collapsing banks, foreign threats, and looming recession. Every new edition added fuel to public panic. Citizens hoarded coins. Traders raised prices overnight. Parliament was gridlocked, arguing endlessly while the economy deteriorated beneath their feet. The government needed a miracle, or at least someone who could provide the illusion of stability long enough to calm the masses. Enter the syndicate. Imagine a modern government selling national infrastructure, ports, railroads, communication networks, and mineral reserves to a hedge fund during a market crash. Now imagine that the hedge fund not only purchased these assets cheaply, but also gained power to influence policy itself. That's the historical scale we're dealing with. The bankers offered stability wrapped in chains. The government accepted, believing the public would never uncover the truth hidden between the lines. But history has a cruel sense of timing, and secrets never stay buried forever. The brilliance of the deal lay not just in its deception, but in its architecture. First came the manufacture crisis. Officials overstated the severity of the financial situation, deliberately painting the economy as seconds away from collapse. Every minister repeated the same narrative. We are out of time. The panic created a psychological vacuum where any solution looked heroic. Step 2. The syndicate arrived as saviors. Their offer was framed as an urgent rescue package, but it came with a labyrinth of conditions. Government assets will be transferred at a small fraction of their intrinsic value. Mines worth millions sold for thousands. National rail networks practically gifted away. Ports, canals, forests, and state-owned enterprises were priced as though the nation had already collapsed. Step 3. The guarantee. In a stunning betrayal of public trust, The government agreed that taxpayers would cover the syndicate's losses under any circumstance. If investments failed, taxpayers paid. If markets crashed, taxpayers paid. But if revenues soared, the syndicate kept every profit. Step 4. Influence. The financiers secured rights unheard of in a democracy. They could advise on monetary policy, influence taxation, recommend interest rates, and in some cases, decide which projects the state should fund. In practice, they became the invisible architects of the nation's economic destiny. Citizens never voted for them. Parliament never approved them. Yet their signatures shaped laws that affected millions. Step 5. Silence. The deal was kept secret through coded documents, private meetings, and non-disclosure agreements. A handful of men controlled the truth while the country unknowingly marched into a new financial order. It was a masterpiece of extraction disguised as salvation, a blueprint that would later inspire modern bailouts and corporate rescues. For months, the system operated in perfect darkness. Wealth quietly flowed into private hands while the public believed the government had miraculously stabilized the economy. But corruption is a time bomb. It only takes one person to trip the wire. That person was a junior clerk, overworked, underpaid, and horrified by the fine print he discovered while organizing documents. He found evidence of prices artificially lowered, interest guarantees hidden in addendums, and clauses granting unprecedented political influence to private bankers. Shocked, he leaked the documents to a local newspaper. First, editors doubted the authenticity. But as more details emerged, the scandal detonated. Protests erupted across cities. Workers marched with torches. Students occupied government buildings. Newspapers exposed how the nation's treasures had been sold in secret. Parliament accused the government of treason. Foreign observers mocked the empire for losing sovereignty through paperwork rather than war. And yet, here lies the tragic twist. By the time the truth surfaced, the transfer of assets was already finalized. Contracts were legally binding. Railroads, banks, mines, ports, all were now controlled by the syndicate. The nation had essentially privatized its lifeline. Undoing the deal would bankrupt the state. Keeping it would enslave future generations to private power. There was no way out. The outrage changed nothing. The damage was permanent. The consequences of that corrupt deal didn't fade with history. They became a template. Wealth gaps widened as ordinary citizens saw opportunities vanish, while syndicate families built dynasties that still exist today. Political influence became a commodity. Policies increasingly favored corporations over workers, financiers over farmers, speculation over production. The idea that the government should socialize losses and privatize gains became standard practice. This pattern appears in modern bailouts, recessions, and corporate rescues across the globe. Many modern financial systems still operate on a similar logic. When markets rise, profits flow to the top. When markets fall, taxpayers absorb the damage. The blueprint born in that secret contract became the DNA of modern capitalism's darker side. And the most unsettling lesson? Corruption rarely appears with a villain's face. It often arrives looking like a hero, promising stability, security, reform. But history whispers a warning. The greatest thefts are not committed in shadows, but signed in broad daylight by the people sworn to protect us. So here's the question. Are governments still making deals like this today, or have they simply become better at hiding them?